Once upon a time, in a vast estate surrounded by ancient mountains and whispering forests, there lived a young man named Victor, heir to a great family fortune. Victor was strong in spirit, but his body carried the marks of an accident that had left him without the use of his legs. He lived reclusive in the old mansion with high walls and immense windows. Luxury was everywhere: Persian rugs, crystal chandeliers, rare books. But none of this filled the emptiness he felt. Victor spent his days looking out the window of the main bedroom, observing the world that now seemed distant. His eyes, once full of fire and ambition, now carried a shadow of bitterness. He barely spoke to the servants and avoided even the relatives who visited the estate. Silence had become his only faithful companion. It was on a fresh spring morning that Clara arrived. A simple young woman with brown hair, loose in the wind, and eyes full of curiosity. She wore a light dress and carried only a small suitcase. Her parents had passed away early, leaving her only determination and a generous heart as inheritance. The housekeeper took her to Victor's room. When the door opened, Victor received her with a cold, almost hostile look. His fingers gripped the arms of the wheelchair tightly. "I don't need pity," he said, his voice hoarse and cutting. "I've had many who came here promising company and left with their pockets full. You can go back the way you came." Clara was not intimidated. She stood still, with her hands clasped in front of her body, and replied with a soft but firm voice, "I didn't come to offer pity, Mr. Victor. I came to describe the world that you can no longer travel with your own feet. If you allow me, I will read to you. I will tell you what the garden, the sky, the flowers are like, everything in detail, as if you were walking with me." Victor let out a short, bitter laugh, turning his face to the window. The silence became heavy for a few seconds. Clara waited patiently. Finally, he murmured, "Do as you wish, but don't expect me to make things easy." That same afternoon, Clara took him to the garden in the special wheelchair. The air was fragrant with roses and moist earth. With a calm and lively voice, she began to describe. "The red roses are open as if they were bleeding at sunset. The petals are so soft, they look like velvet. The wind blows gently, making the leaves of the centennial trees dance like ballerinas. Listen. You can hear the stream in the distance, singing softly among the stones." Victor listened in complete silence. For the first time in years, something stirred inside his chest, a small spark. A curiosity, he thought, was dead. When the sun set, painting the sky orange and pink, Clara continued describing every nuance of color. Victor closed his eyes and, for a brief moment, felt as if he were seeing again. When they returned to the mansion, he said nothing. But when Clara said goodbye with a "Good night, sir," he replied softly, "Until tomorrow." The following days were marked by a new and delicate routine. Clara arrived early every morning, bringing with her old books, a notebook of notes, and a tranquil energy that seemed to illuminate the dark corridors of the mansion. Victor was still reserved, answering mostly in monosyllables, but he no longer dismissed her. She soon realized that he was not only interested in novels or poetry. Victor wanted to hear the living world. So, instead of staying only inside the room, Clara took him through the garden, along the gravel paths, and even near the stream. Pushing the wheelchair carefully, she described everything with rich detail. "Today the sky is such a deep blue that it seems to hold ancient secrets. There are some fluffy clouds, like scattered cotton. The yellow butterflies fly low, almost brushing the purple lavender flowers. The smell is sweet and fresh, mixed with the earth wet from yesterday." Victor began to smile. They were small smiles, almost imperceptible at first, but genuine. He, who barely exchanged words with his own family, began to tell Clara his old business ideas, projects he had set aside after the accident. "I dreamed of expanding the lands, planting new types of coffee. But what's the use now?" he said, looking at his motionless legs. Clara listened with total attention, as if every word from him was the most important thing in the world. She wrote everything down in her notebook and, the next day, brought simple but sensible suggestions. "You can still command everything. Your mind is sharp. Your legs do not carry your talent. Little by little, Victor began to anxiously await her arrival. When Clara was a few minutes late, he became restless, looking at the door. One afternoon, while the sun warmed the garden, he asked, "Why aren't you afraid of me?" Most people feel uncomfortable near someone like me. Clara stopped the wheelchair beside a stone bench and sat facing him. "Because I see the strong man you still are. I see determination in your eyes. And I like being here. When I describe the world to you, I also begin to see again the beauty we often ignore in everyday life." Victor remained silent, but his gaze was softer. For the first time, he extended his hand and lightly touched her arm in a gesture of gratitude. The friendship between them grew slowly, like a flower opening petal by petal, and deep in Victor's heart, something greater than friendship began to be born. The tranquility began to be threatened when Victor's uncle, Raoul, a tall man with a deep voice and an ambitious look, increased his visits to the estate. Raoul had always been second in the line of succession and now saw a golden opportunity. He whispered through the corridors, talking to lawyers and partners. "Victor is a cripple. He can't even walk alone. How will he manage such a large fortune? I am the most capable of taking over everything." The servants commented quietly. Some looks of pity and doubt began to appear. Victor noticed the tension in the air, but pretended not to care. Inside, insecurity returned with force. Clara, however, did not remain silent. With courage, she began to pay even more attention. She noted down all the decisions Victor made, organized documents, and read financial reports aloud with clarity and patience. Sometimes, late into the night, she stayed by his side, helping to plan responses for the upcoming meetings. One night, after overhearing a suspicious conversation between Raoul and a lawyer, Clara went to Victor's room. Her eyes were determined. "Mr. Victor, your uncle is plotting. He wants to prove that you are not capable of leading, but we will not allow it. You have brilliant ideas. I will be by your side every step of the way." Victor looked at her, surprised by such loyalty. He felt a mixture of gratitude and fear. "And what if he's right, Clara? What if I really can't do it?" She knelt beside the wheelchair, holding his hands with affection. "You have already overcome what many thought was impossible. Every day you wake up and decide to continue is a victory. I believe in you, and I will fight by your side." Inspired by her dedication, Victor found new strength. He began to dictate letters, make firm decisions, and plan for the future again. The shadow of doubt still lingered, but now there was a light by his side. Clara's light. The silent battle for the inheritance and respect had begun, and Victor, with a heart more alive than ever, was determined not to surrender. One afternoon, the skies suddenly darkened. Heavy clouds brought a strong and persistent rain that fell like a silver veil over the estate. Victor and Clara were in the garden when the storm arrived. She pushed the wheelchair carefully, trying to return to the mansion, but the gravel path turned to mud. The wheels kept getting stuck more and more. Clara, soaked to the bone, did not give up. With her dress clinging to her body and her hair stuck to her face, she pushed with all her strength, her feet sinking into the wet earth. Victor watched the scene with a tight heart. Raindrops ran down his face, mixing with something he didn't want to admit were tears. "Stop, Clara, you're gonna hurt yourself," he pleaded, his voice hoarse with concern. "I'm not going to leave you here under this rain," she replied, panting, pushing with more determination. After much effort, the wheelchair finally came out of the mud. Clara was shivering with cold, but smiled in relief. When they reached the covered veranda, she stopped the wheelchair and took a deep breath. Victor looked at her for a long time. His eyes, once filled only with bitterness, now overflowed with tenderness. "Why do you do this for me, Clara?" he asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. "I am a burden, a man who can barely move on his own." Clara knelt in front of him, ignoring her own wet clothes. Her eyes shone with sincerity. "Because when I describe the world to you, I also see it again with new eyes. Because you make me want to be better. And because taking care of someone who deserves it is not a burden, Victor. It is a privilege." A silence full of emotion hung between them. Victor slowly extended his hand and touched Clara's wet face, wiping away a raindrop. It was a light, hesitant touch, but full of meaning. Both their hearts were beating strongly. For the first time, he allowed the feeling to grow without fighting it. Clara held his hand against her face, closing her eyes for a moment. The rain continued to fall in the background. But there, on the veranda, the world seemed to have stopped. At that momentum. Profound change. The affection they felt for each other began to transform into something greater, more beautiful and pure, a love born of respect, admiration, and true care. Raoul did not waste time. He scheduled a large business meeting at the estate, inviting all the important partners and lawyers. His plan was clear: to publicly humiliate Victor, to show that he depended on others, even to move, and thus take control of the inheritance. The tension in the mansion was palpable. Victor felt the weight of doubt return with force. The night before, he almost gave up. Sitting by the window, he stared into the darkness. Clara entered the room with a cup of hot tea and sat beside him. "You're afraid, aren't you?" she asked softly. "How could I not be? They will see me as an invalid, a broken man." Clara held his hands firmly. "They will see a man of courage. You have brilliant ideas, Victor. I will be by your side the whole time. I will describe every face, every expression, every look. You will not be alone." On the day of the meeting, the main hall was full. Victor entered, pushed by Clara, with his head held high. She stayed slightly behind him, whispering descriptions quietly. "Mr. Soros looks nervous. He's squeezing his hands. Your uncle's lawyer has a fake smile. Everyone is looking at you with curiosity, but some with respect." Victor took a deep breath and began to speak. His voice, a little shaky at first, gained strength. He presented detailed plans to expand the businesses, ideas that Clara had helped organize during nights of reading and conversation. Every number, every strategy was spoken with clarity and determination. The partners listened attentively. Little by little, the looks of pity turned into admiration. When Raoul tried to interrupt with sarcastic comments, Victor responded with calm and intelligence, dismantling every argument. At the end of the meeting, the applause was sincere. Several partners approached to congratulate Victor, recognizing his capability. Raoul left the hall with his face red with anger and humiliation. That night, Victor and Clara were alone on the terrace. He looked at her with deep gratitude. "Today, I wouldn't have made it without you. Your courage gave me strength. We did it together," she replied, smiling. The victory was not just about business. It was a victory of determination over fear, of love, over doubt. Inspired by the victory, Victor decided he no longer wanted to just survive. He wanted to move forward. With the help of a physiotherapist, he began training with special crutches adapted to his condition. The first days were difficult. His body hurt, his balance failed, and the falls were frequent. Clara was always present. She did not treat him with pity, but with loving firmness. When he fell, she helped him get up, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said, "One more time, Victor. Every attempt is a step. I am here. It hurts," he confessed, panting. No, but think about how much you have already overcome. Think about us." Between training sessions, the roles were reversed. Victor taught Clara about the world of business. He explained strategies, told stories of his travels before the accident, and lent her rare books from the library. Clara absorbed everything with enthusiasm, her eyes shining with admiration. "You give me wings," she said. "I never imagined learning so much." The days became lighter. Laughter echoed through the mansion. Small gestures of affection arose naturally. A lingering look, hands that touched by accident, gentle words before sleep. Love grew slowly, like a strong tree that sends down deep roots. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult training session, Victor managed to stand for longer using the crutches. Clara clapped, with tears in her eyes. "You're walking, Victor. Look at you." He smiled, exhausted but happy. and extended his hand to her. Every step I take thinking of you. The bond between them grew stronger every day. It was not an easy love, but it was true, built on overcoming, respect, and mutual care. Together, they turned limitations into strength on a starry night. On the terrace of the mansion, Clara was describing the sky. The stars looked like diamonds scattered across a mantle of black velvet. Victor interrupted her. Clara, you no longer need to describe the world to me. You are my world. Not as someone who needs help, but as the man I want to be by your side. She cried with emotion. I love you, too, Victor. Since the first day I saw strength where others saw weakness, they kissed under the stars, a kiss of overcoming and hope. Months later, Victor, with effort and determination, managed to stand for longer. It wasn't perfect, but it was victory. Rolled with the ray, defeated by his own greed. The estate flourished under Victor's leadership. Now, by Clara's side, they got married in a simple ceremony, surrounded by the nature that Clara loved so much to describe. Victor, seated in his decorated wheelchair, held her hand with pride. My dear ones, in this story as old as the wind and as fresh as the morning, we learn that true love does not see the limitations of the body, but the greatness of the soul. Victor teaches us that determination and courage can turn wheelchairs into thrones and pain into strength. Clara shows us that the greatest gift we can offer is sincere care and faithful presence. It is not the legs that make us walk through life, but the heart that decides to move forward. When someone describes the world to us with love, we do not merely see, we are reborn. May each of us find our own Clara or Victor. Someone who, even in the storms, pushes the wheelchair, holds the hand and says, I am here. Let's go together. And may we never forget, true love does not heal all wounds, but makes it possible to live with them with our heads held high, with gratitude and hope. And if this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel. Turn on the bell so you don't miss any story. Leave your comment. Do you believe that destiny can change everything?